Good afternoon. Welcome to UKSAR2G's Operational Stakeholder Update. My name is Sam Williams and I'm HM Coast Guard's Operational Senior User for the UKSAR2G project. Topics being covered in today's update include details on all the work that's been done to the requirements documentation to date, what external engagement will now happen, its aims and its methodology, a user guide for the UKSAR2G requirements, so those of you who receive the requirements documentation have a better way of understanding that document and can assess it appropriately. And then finally, I'll take you through the next steps of the procurement process and cover any sort of future planned engagement. Between July and September 2020, we've undertaken some intensive review and engagement work across all of the internal operational departments within the MCA to gather their feedback. The aim of this engagement really was to ensure that the document that we came up with at the end, the single statement of user needs for UKSAR2G, was a true and accurate reflection of what HM Coast Guard actually do need from their future aviation service. In early October, that document, after it had gone through that entire process, was presented to the HM Coast Guard Executive Board, and they reviewed the work that had been done and signed off and took forward the appropriate amendments that were then included in the document that will now be shared with external stakeholders. So, external engagement. Following on from this internal engagement work, we have now shared with appropriate Category 1 responders and government departments the SSUN documentation. And the aim of sharing this document is to provide such organisations with the opportunity to, one, view the direction that the MCA are heading in, and also to provide feedback. We're very interested to see and hear what your views are on the direction that we are heading in. For those of you who act as a tasking authority for a volunteer search and rescue organisation, we are asking that it is yourselves who engage with these other organisations and gather feedback on the SSUN on their behalf and present that back to the Maritime Coast Guard Agency. So in terms of interpreting the requirements documentation, or the SSUN, we've put together a very basic user guide just explaining the key headers that you'll see on that documentation. So going from left to right, we'll start with the UN number. This is essentially a unique reference number associated to each individual requirement. We would ask, if you are providing feedback on specific requirements, you do state the UR number in that feedback. Next is the user requirements. Pretty much as it says on the tin, this is the specific requirement that the MCA require of this service. Next, we'll move on to both the measure of effectiveness threshold and objective. Now, essentially, these are, I'll start off with the threshold one. The threshold level is the minimum that we will expect any supplier to deliver against that set requirement, with the objective being almost, you could call it the preferred level. It is over and above the minimum that we would require, and in the assessment process, when we receive bidders' responses, this will obviously score higher. Next, we have the requirements of response from participant, and essentially this is a guide to those bidders, advising them what evidence they need to provide the MCA to prove and support the claims they are making. The last column is the lot number. Now, the lot number relates to the type of aviation assets that we are looking to procure. Now, very briefly, so lot 1, that is for a rotary wing asset, and that is a small, fast and urgent short-range rescue type aircraft. Lot 2 is a slightly larger, higher endurance, with a longer range and slightly larger capacity. Lot 3 relates to a fixed wing asset. Now, that can be manned and or unmanned. And finally, you have common, which is essentially that requirement relates to all of the above. We've also put together for you a short glossary of terms. Now, this is really just to assist and aid you in interpreting some of the wording within the SSUN document. I'll go through the basic ones we have on the slide there, and these are the ones that are most prevalent throughout the documentation. So supplier is the supplier of the service. That will be the contractor delivering this service for the MCA. A system, where the documentation refers to a system, that relates to anything that supplier will use to deliver that specific requirement within the contract. An asset is a particular aircraft that forms part of that system that is being used to deliver a particular element or a particular effect of that requirement. The coordinating authority. Now, this is essentially a requesting agency that's the customer, essentially. So, I mean, the definition we have here is anyone who requests the use of a HMCG aviation asset. The tasking authority, that will always be HM Coast Guard's Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Centre, or the ARCC. And in some of the requirements, we refer to the term near real time. Now, this is almost exclusively where the requirements relate to video downlink or data downlink in some regard, and that is defined as sub 1 second delivery of that digital product. Next steps. So where are we going from here? As of the 27th of October 2020, the SSUN will be distributed out to the appropriate recipients. All feedback from the SSUN is requested to be emailed to the UKSAR2G at mcga.gov.uk mailbox. The 30th of November is a deadline that we're asking for this feedback to be submitted. We are also offering the opportunity for Category 1 responders and appropriate government departments to have a virtual meeting with the MCA if they so wish to discuss any particular requirement in further detail. Post the 30th of November, follow-on engagement will or can occur relating to specific requirements, and that will be done on a case-by-case basis. So looking further forwards, currently we are involved in a market engagement, and that's running until December 2020. Moving on from there, we've got the publication of the procurement notice. This is going to take place anytime between January and March next year, and that will then kick off the procurement cycle. And as you can see, that's running all the way down until December 2022. At that point, then, the anticipation is that the contract will then be awarded, with service commencements kicking off as of 30th of September 2024. I should say all of these dates are currently indicative and are very much subject to change. That's it from the update today. I hope that's been useful. As we've articulated, if you do have any particular questions, then please do submit them to the UKSAR2G at mcga.gov.uk mailbox. Thank you.